Good morning, YouTube. This is LA Prepper here with another vlog. Um, Let me just say before I start this vlog that I know, just watching me talk about what I think about various prepping related things isn't quite as perhaps authentic as, camping out in the wilderness and things like that, but we're getting there. We're going to be getting there. Looking towards getting an adventure pass so that I can play up in the national park, which is right up the street from me, so to speak, since I am in Los Angeles. So this winter, we are going to be doing some more interesting things. We're going to be out in the field, and we're going to see just what kind of bushcraft, survival skills that LA Prepper has. Not a lot, but not nothing either. So, I could start a fire and build a shelter. As far as, hunting, trapping, catching food, or even wild edibles, I have some ways to go, but that's okay. We're all going to learn together. So today, on September 15th, 14th, we're going to talk about a few things. We're going to talk about crazy now versus crazy later. We're going to talk about always be prepping. And I'm going to give kind of a little mini gear review of some of the random stuff in my bug out bag. So, crazy now versus crazy later. The point of this topic is I hypothesize that, and probably I'm not the only one, but I hypothesize that if people are crazy now, they will be more crazy when shit hits the fan. Now that, on the outside, that doesn't seem like a very prophetic hypothesis. You might say, well, of course, that's obvious. But the reason that I think it's important to mention is because, I saw a guy today in a brand new Mercedes, and I have a dash cam in my car, and we were driving, coming up to, I guess, a red light, and, we were slowing down. He was in front of me. I was slowing down. I was, maybe going a little quicker than I should, given that there was a red light ahead of me, but based on the amount of space in front of the car in front of me and how I expected him to slow down, I figured I would kind of increase how much I'm braking and kind of increase that gap. So anyways, we approach this intersection that's before where all the cars are stopped, and someone's trying to pull out. So instead of going past the car waiting to pull out, because keep in mind, he's still kind of slowing down. He kind of like slams on the brakes just to let this car go in front of him, which to me was completely unexpected. So, the ABS didn't kick in or anything, but I'm kind of hitting the brakes hard, and I got a little upset. And I thought about it for a moment, and I was thinking, I should be driving slower. I shouldn't follow so close. Maybe this guy is just a normal, regular driver. Well, few moments later, light turns green and he's flooring it. And then he's trying to switch this lane. He's trying to pass this guy. And then he's flooring it up here in his, Mercedes AMG, C whatever. And I'm just like, what? Why? Why? I mean, because he has a new car, I guess. Maybe he's late for, old girlfriend of mine used to say that when you see people driving crazy, they're either late for dinner or late for sex. But anyways, no reason to drive crazy like that. I mean, he really could have hit somebody and caused an accident and, gone off the street into a pedestrian. And I'm not getting this thing about, drive safe. But the point is, people are unpredictable now when things are quote unquote normal. You can still go to the store, get whatever you want. So take that guy with a chip on his shoulder. I bought a brand new Mercedes. I can drive like a maniac. Fuck everyone else. Then take away his shower, take away his Starbucks, take away flushing toilets, take away running water, take away fast food, restaurants, putting gas in the car, even just for a couple of days, and he's probably going to be even in an even more pissy mood than he was today. So the point is, when you see people, acting a little off in public. Maybe they're being aggressive, or they're just being really weird, or they're driving like a lunatic. Um, try not to let it get to you. Even if you have to interact with them, but keep in mind, however crazy and funny people act now, when things get difficult, you got to multiply that by a factor of 2, 3, 4, 5, 10. Depending on the person, the circumstance, but going to be worse. Going to be a lot worse. So when preppers are talking about make sure you have food, make sure you can defend yourself, make sure you build a community with people that are sane that you can trust. It's not so much because you're worried about running out of toilet paper or something like that, although that's certainly a concern. But the point is, people are going to act extremely unpredictably. I mean, in some sense, it's going to be predictable because they're going to be acting out of desperation. And we know that when people get desperate, they do things beyond what they would normally do, especially when your survival instincts kick in and your needs are not being met. Your sleeping needs, your eating needs, your security needs, even if it's psychologically, if you feel unsafe, that's enough to get people to act out of order. So I won't talk too much more about that, but just keep in mind, however crazy people are now, it's going to get a lot crazier potentially. Topic number 2, always be prepping. Just talk a little bit about what I was working on today. I was going to go to the range. I haven't been to the range since I first went to the range, and shame on me. I got a scope from someone in the community. Got a mount for it. The mount didn't work. Had to get another mount. So weeks went by. I think it's been 3 or 4 weeks. Gonna hit it today. Kind of got a late start. Still had to get some more ammo. Had to get some earplugs or some earmuffs that I could wear over the earplugs because it's so loud at the range. Even with the earplugs. I mean, I had a guy with a Mosin Nagant next to me, which I think is like a 7.62, and boom, it's like a cannon. The guy's holding a cannon in his arm, firing it next to me, and your whole, you just feel it through your body. I'm not easily startled, but it was something I hadn't experienced in quite a while. Such an incredibly loud noise right next to me. In fact, I think that was probably one of the loudest noises I've ever been that close to. I've been around loud noises and jackhammers and explosions, working in mines and volunteering in mines and things like that. But that was a really loud noise right next to me. So gotta get some earmuffs. Went to Big Five, got some ammo, got the earmuffs at Home Depot. So I didn't go to the range today because I was kind of pressed for time, but also SWAT, bless their hearts, is doing target practice at the range. So, and that was actually the first time I was there, SWAT was there because I was just dying to get to the range. But today, they close half the range down. They give them the one half, and I understand SWAT guys probably don't want to be around the general public with their firearms and such. I don't really blame them, per se, but so they take half the range, which means that, and since it's a half day off on Thursday, you already have a bunch of traffic there. So you're putting, 30, 40 people plus on, I don't know, it's like 2 booths and shotguns, sort of, maybe like 20 benches, and each bench kind of has 2 sides, but you can't get too close to people. So at any rate, I didn't want to drive up there, and I have a lot of other stuff to do. All these excuses, I know. Next week, though, for sure, get out to the range. But so today was just kind of a supply run, a little bit of ammo, some ear protection. So I got everything ready to go for next week. So next week, I don't have to stop anywhere before I go to the range, because I kept running this problem of the place I was buying ammo opens at 10, but the range opens at 10. So really, I'm trying to be at the range at 10. I'm not trying to be at the place that I want to get stuff because it's like a half an hour away from the range. So then I'm at the range at 10:30. So I just want to get a good spot where it's not super busy and not have to fight. Not necessarily trying to be next to the guy with the Mosin Nagant. So always be prepping. Things are uncertain. I know that, people are busy, finances are strained. It's easy to say, well, I'll put it off till next week. I'll get it tomorrow. And, not to be too, nihilistic or anything, but we don't know how certain tomorrow is going to be. We don't know if there's going to be earthquake, hurricane, flood, power outage, EMP, on and on and on. So, like Benjamin Franklin said, don't put off tomorrow what you can do today. And even if it's something small, I feel kind of crappy not going to the range today. I've been waiting for weeks to do it. But I did still make the day productive by, getting some supplies. So without further ado, let's take a look at a couple of these sort of miscellaneous bags that I have in my bug out bag, which is in dire need of work. I'm not planning on bugging out. It still needs to be something's part of my contingency. I have the vehicle too. So on the one hand, part of me is sort of like, why am I focusing so much on a bug out bag when I plan on bugging out with my car potentially? To be honest, I plan on bugging in as long as humanly possible. The roads are going to be busy. You're going to run out of gas unless you take a bunch of gas with you. And I don't have, I really don't have any extra gas to speak of right now, which is sort of a crime in and of itself. So my prepping is definitely a work in progress. Part of the reason I'm shooting these videos so I can kind of connect with the community. Maybe somebody will leave a comment, hey, get your preps together. All right, so what do we got? Let's go one by one. We have some fishing line with some hooks that I'm not going to take out because they're taped in there nice and neat. This was something like a few hundred yards of fishing line, and I kind of divided it up between a few bags. So we'll put that over there. We have a AM, FM, and shortwave radio. In fact, it's AM, FM, and TV. Yeah, I guess the FM... Okay, so the FM drops down. I guess below FM, we're getting some TV channels. Just 5 TV channels. That's kind of crappy, but... just a little simple Kite radio. I don't have batteries in here at the moment. And in case you're wondering why I don't have batteries in the moment, there's always, even when there's power switches and such, batteries, when they're in electronic devices, tend to, it can make them not last as much. Depending on the device, there might not be any juice through it, but nevertheless, probably better to kind of keep your batteries out of your stuff, unless it's something like, a light for your rifle that's on your rifle, maybe keep your batteries in that, or batteries for your red dot. You don't want to be searching for that necessarily, but cool little radio. It's not a crank radio. That's kind of, something else on my wish list, but yeah, crank radio or some rechargeable batteries and, some solar panel way of recharging them. I have crap for rechargeable stuff right now, and in fact, I'm gonna put on my to-do list some rechargeable stuff, because even a $20 or $30 something that'll give me 12 volts to charge my cell phone would be really great. Granted, if the power's out for a long time, I don't know what you're going to be doing with the cell phone, but even if it's, I have a PDF on my cell phone of, which I don't, but if I did, which I should, edible plants, first aid, anything like that. Here we have a little saw, little finger, ring saw. I would need to get I should start making a wish list, but I need a folding wood saw. They're just, or maybe probably a folding wood saw. They're just so handy. Hatchets are great. I can use a hatchet. I can use an axe, but the thing is, I don't know whether or not a hatchet or an axe or a saw uses more energy. I would say it's definitely safer using a saw. Even though I know how to use a hatchet safely, I still would prefer a lower risk activity like using a saw. Maybe you're tired, maybe it's wet, maybe it's icy. Whatever reason, the lower risk, the better. So maybe you're up in a tree, maybe you're trying to cut some branch that's, and you're not trying to hack away at a tree. So multiple ways to do what you're trying to do is always good. I don't even have a hatchet right now. Christ. I do have a machete though. So as far as cutting branches, that big or bigger, I don't have an axe. I mean, I could just go to Home Depot and spend $1,000 on preps and still feel like I was short. So, but everything in due course. All right, we got some matches here. These are not waterproof. They're not windproof. They're just regular old matches. If it was really windy and they get wet, yeah, they're not going to work. But guess what? They're still better than nothing. I'd love to get some little waterproof containers to put these in. Another thing for the to-do list, got some more hooks and some lead weights. I am the worst fisherman in the world. Maybe I should go to the pier, work on my fishing skills. That would be a cool little trip. My Fox 40 lifeguard whistle, this is sort of my signaling thing, and we have a laser and a light. Let's see if the laser still works. Yep. Kind of a piece of garbage thing, but I think I got it for $1. Lasers, you can do Morse code with lasers. Cool thing about a laser, in the movies, they have insane amounts of fog machines going everywhere. So every time somebody's got a laser, you see it like it's a freaking lightsaber, moving around, but they have to put ridiculous amounts of fog to get a laser to do that. Most lasers in the daytime, even at night, unless it's really, really foggy or it's cloudy or something, you're not going to be able to see it. So unless you're sort of somewhere in the front of the field of view, but essentially, if you can get some guy or your friend or whatnot, do some Morse code, a laser, even though you could see the light, potentially, laser's going to be a lot more clear. It's going to go further. If you wanted to get super creative and you had a laser with like little symbols on it or something, you could do little arrows, I don't know. But laser is a really good long distance signaling device. And speaking of signaling devices, we have a mirror here. Rory Gracie went to the San Diego Zoo on May 12th. I hope Rory had a good time. He had a nice little thing. This is chromed. It actually serves multiple purposes. So presently, it is this, stupid little ring. It's a signaling device. It's also a striker for flint. Flint's right there, so I can use this to strike the flint. I have blades, of course, but always, this is really cool because it's dull. So if I'm working with the flint here, I don't have to worry about, cutting myself or anything. And I also don't have to worry about, not like it's a big deal scratching up the back of my knife, but I'd rather scratch this up than scratch my blade up. So also I could use this as a blade at a pinch. I could sharpen one of these edges. I could, kind of use it as like a screwdriver or something. It's actually relatively stiff, so if I needed to, open a muscle or something, that's a really random, my muscle opening survival tool here. I'm 30 miles from the ocean. Got some AAA batteries. I think I have a headlight or two that runs on AAAs. I don't know if I have anything in my bug out bag on AAAs right now. But guaranteed, you're out in the field, someone's going to need AAAs. Or let's talk about some other things you can use AAAs for. Get a very small strand of wire from a pair of headphones and just an individual strand. Peel back this, the bottom is negative, but believe it or not, the entire outside shell of the battery is negative, and they have a plastic case on the outside. So what you can do, let's get my little phone here as an example, my phone cable. So you take your little piece of wire. You're going to have to get something a lot smaller than this, like, for example, go ahead and take this out. So let's say you have a little piece of wire. Get something about this diameter, maybe even a little bit smaller, but take your wire, wrap it around like that. Now, the wire's going to get a little bit hot. If you have pliers or something, honestly, just kind of have to burn your hands. This is for when you run out of matches, or if it's really windy, this is kind of like a last ditch thing. But you peel back a little bit of the battery, hold one end on here, and kind of make the other end so that it's coiled and it comes up and you can kind of press it down. Get your your fire starting, maybe a piece of cotton soaked in Vaseline, and then touch the edge. It's going to heat up like a resistor, like the filament in a light bulb. It'll get really hot. It's also going to kind of start like burning whatever gunk's on the wire. The wire doesn't last more than a couple rounds of this, but then you kind of light whatever you have, and it's not, a flame, it's just an element, so you might have to kind of drag it along. You might have to do it a couple times, but if you push, push comes to shove, you could light a fire. If you're not getting enough juice from one, you can try to put them in parallel, get a little bit more amperage. You could connect them in series to get more voltage, but honestly, either increase in power to the wire, whether it's more amps or more volts, you're still going to get more juice, but it's just easier to connect them in parallel, because trying to connect them in serial would be, end to end, in other words, would be just, a pain. So got some double A's, got a little fire kind of starter thing here. And this is actually, it's not just a fire starter, it is actually fuel. You could boil like a cup of water if you had to. It would be an incredible waste to use this for fuel. Unless, I don't know, you really had to heat some water. Maybe you were trying to sterilize your knife so you could, dig a bullet out of somebody or something awful like that. But really cheap Walmart knife. I hate the thumb releases because it's just way too easy to cut yourself. I did it once. I never want a knife like that again. But this is, even though this is a cheap knife, it's relatively solid. It's got a nice serrated blade. If you don't know, a lot of you, if you look at a serrated blade, depending on how, I'm not a big knife guy, but I'll tell you one of the cool things about them. It's not just that they're good for cutting. If you're in the kitchen, use a smooth blade for like maybe a vegetable like a tomato or something. You use a serrated blade for bread. But the reason serrated blades are nice is because they stay sharp. You're kind of getting the teeth, the teeth are getting a little bit dull, but a little bit deeper on the blade, you still have some good cutting. So besides the fact that they would be good for, like cutting through a joint on an animal, if you were skinning an animal, you wanted to take it, at the wrist or the elbow, getting through tendons, you're going to want a little bit of sawing action. But a serrated blade will stay sharp longer, especially if you have to cut things that are tough. So that's just a little bonus on why serrated blades are cool. And we have our trusty Swiss Army knife, which could use a little bit of sharpening, and actually just got a sharpening stone. So maybe I'll leave that over there. So this is bag number 1. And if you have any comments on the quality of this stuff and whether or not you think I need to get my S together, like if you see this radio and you think you have to get a hand crank radio and you're a fool for not having a hand crank radio, or why don't you have a hatchet? You should have a hatchet. A machete's not as good as a hatchet, which I know it's not, but all things in due time. I do have it all in a Ziploc bag here just to give it a little bit of waterproof. It might be worth doing something like putting the batteries in the radio in another Ziploc just to kind of be that much more careful, because it's super nice to be able to hear what's going on the radio. And the shortwave stuff, that's where you're going to get, maybe some amateurs. So even if FM and AM are down because the power's out, you never know what kind of amateur stuff you're going to pick up. All right, miscellaneous bag number 2. Got some toilet paper. Not just for toilet paper usage, but honestly, at a pinch, you can use it for other stuff. You can sort of use it for gauze. I wouldn't, if you're going to use toilet paper for gauze, I would not put it directly on the wound. What I would do is put some cotton or some other cloth on the wound and then sort of use this as an ancillary to help kind of absorb the blood. It will kind of disintegrate and fall apart when it gets really bloody and gross. So, but if you do, if you've already, torn off your t-shirt, or you don't want to take off your clothes and it's freezing and you don't have anything but, the sleeve of your t-shirt and some toilet paper, still better to have some material to absorb some of that. Of course, we have some standard gauze here, which is sterile. Now, this is something you'd be a little more comfortable if someone had, a really bad wound and you had to actually pack gauze in the wound. And I won't even begin to try to give first aid advice, but this is something that if you had to, deal directly with the flesh, that would be a lot more appropriate. Have some Gorilla Tape here. This stuff is super strong. I don't even know. I don't even think it's. I don't even know if it's brand new necessarily. I mean, I might have pulled it off something else, but still better to have some tape than not. If you're doing anything first aid related, you're going to want to have tape. Uh, you can, it's nice to have the medical tape. I think I have some in my other bag. I really should get some more of that. But thermometer, cheap thermometer, when you don't have access to a hospital, even something like a fever can still be a cause for concern, especially with younger people. So as an adult, you get a fever, it might not be a big deal, but if you have a very elderly person or a very young person, can be really invaluable if someone has a fever to know that they have a fever. Space blankets. I feel honestly of all the things preppers do. Wow, this one's open. I feel like space blankets are a joke, and I'm going to tell you why. Um, yes, they will keep you warm. Yes, they're good for trapping a large amount of heat. Yes, you could theoretically make a shelter with the space blanket. You could do first aid stuff with the space blanket. You could maybe make a solar still with the space blanket. The number of uses are endless. The joke is, of course, you're going to have this big crinkly mess of, stuff as soon as you open it. So, I mean, space blankets are super awesome, but it's like letting the cat, as soon as you let the cat out of the bag, they're a lot cooler before you open them. I'll say that. If any of you have ever messed with space blankets, you know what I mean. Joke of a first aid kit here, just to kind of have some organization, just some band-aids and alcohol. Infection is not a joke. You might get, let's say you cut yourself with a rusty nail, or maybe someone cuts themselves, and maybe even worse, they have never gotten a tetanus shot. So tetanus, which is actually lockjaw, can potentially be a very life-threatening thing. And just to clarify, tetanus and rust do not really have anything to do with each other. Tetanus, the virus or bacteria, or let me look it up real quick, whatever it is, tetanus, a disease, okay, comes from sort of dirty, dark, dank environment. So the reason that rust is sort of considered connected to tetanus is because when you have moisture and dark places, you can have potentially rust, but you could also have tetanus. So it's not so much that a rusty nail has tetanus, it's that wherever the rusty nail was has a high probability of having tetanus. So even though this is a joke of a first aid kit or first aid supplies, these cleansing wipes alone are worth picking this up for $1. I mean, it'd be worth just picking up all cleansing wipes because you do not want to get infections. Any little cut or scrape that you get, ideally, if you have the supplies, wash it with soap and water, wash it with alcohol, either rubbing alcohol or hard alcohol. You do not want to mess around with infections at all. Got some cold sore medication, just little things like that can be highly uncomfortable if you're in the sun. In fact, I'll kind of do a little lip health. We got some chapstick with SPF. Make sure you get a high SPF. Getting sunburn is extremely unfun. And if every time you eat, you're in pain because your lips are chapped, you're not going to be happy. I'm going to leave these out because I have to sharpen them. They're just ridiculously dull. God, they're so hard to sharpen because my stone is bigger than. I gotta get some new medical scissors, and what distinguishes medical scissors is that they have, this plate, which isn't even that smooth on this one. I should sand it up a little bit. But the idea is, if you need to cut under a bandage, you can, run this under someone under a bandage, and you don't have to worry about cutting them. I have them taped together because I don't want them to open up and give me issues. Have some condoms in here, not as a prophylactic, but as a first aid thing. Unfortunately, they are lubricated. If they were not lubricated, they would be a lot better for holding water. But even lubricated, let's say you can make, let's say I take this Ziploc bag, fill the How does it go? I want to say, okay, the charcoal's at the bottom of the cloth, the gravel, the sand. That's right. So dirt. So, for example, if I was going to filter my water with, a homemade charcoal, gravel, sand filter, I would be a little less concerned about carrying the water back in a lubricated condom. Um, you can Google. I don't have off the top of my head, 101 uses for a condom in a survival situation. But if you don't believe me, Google 100 uses of a condom, and you will understand why I have those. Ace bandage, not sterile, but I don't know why I have it separate. Maybe I should. I think the packaging, it came in some packaging that was kind of big and bulky. This should really never really be in contact with a wound either. So even though it's not sterile, you're gonna wrap with gauze and then wrap with the bandage. So I'm not ideally having everything sterile is a lot better, but in a pinch, better than nothing to have a non-sterile bandage. Super glue. Speaking of first aid, super glue is great for sealing cuts. Obviously has 1,001 other uses. Aspirin and some Pepto-Bismol, some bismuth tablets. Aspirin, not so much for headaches, more for heart attack, stroke. I believe it is a thinner, so if someone's having, they recommend it for heart attacks and things like that. So chest pain, potentially, if you can't go to the hospital, if someone's having chest pain or you think they might be having a heart attack, it's up to you whether or not, you want to recommend it or give it to them or say, hey, I have some aspirin if you want some. Typically, there are some good Samaritan laws regarding, like, say you give him some aspirin and it gets worse and he, society comes back and he sues you because he says, this guy gave me aspirin and it made blah, blah, blah worse. I leave it to you how much first aid you want to give those that are in need, but look up aspirin and heart attacks and make your own decision on that. So thanks for watching. That was a short, not such a short video on crazy people, on trying to prep continuously, and on just kind of a hodgepodge of some of the miscellaneous stuff that I have in my bug out bag. Hope you enjoyed it. We're going to be doing more videos in the future. Definitely going to get out in the field. Next week, going to be hitting the range, so hope to have some good videos of that. Going to see if I can kind of finagle something with binoculars and the cell phone so I can actually get some good shots on the target as I'm shooting, because I don't have a fancy through scope camera setup right now. And I probably won't put that on the wish list for a while. But thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.